guys, so today we want to talk about creativity and really what we can do to become more creative in business development. We also have a few business cases and so on, but let's go to the agenda. We're going to talk first about the role of creativity in business development, why it's important. We're going to talk about some things that prevent us from being very creative when it comes to BD. And then we're going to talk about some tactics to boost creativity. We finish off with some books and tools recommendations, a few goals that we have for this webinar. So the first one is really to help you integrate more creativity in your BD job. But you're going to see that it's not only about your BD role. In general, it's about adopting a new mindset that helps you be more creative on the long term. We want to help you increase your business outcomes by implementing creativity in your job. We want to help you improve the cross-team collaboration with other teams, marketing, sales, and so on. And of course, the goal is that you become more valuable in your company because you're simply better able to spot opportunities and, of course, generate more value for the company. All right, so creativity in BD. I always like to start from the definitions. I know that sometimes they're basic and it's just a definition, but I think definitions are important because they really help us give us the frame into setting up the framework basically for all we're going to talk about today. Now, when we're talking about creativity, we're talking about using our imagination to create something valuable. Now, of course, as business developers, that's pretty much all what we have to do. We have to generate value for our companies. But of course, we need to be able to find new opportunities, generate new leads, and so on. So we need to come up with something a little bit different that helps us stand out from other companies, from other colleagues, maybe, especially if we want to grow within the company. And of course, the idea is that all the new activities and all the new initiatives we implement, they generate extra value for our company. Now, of course, creativity is important on the light of the ever-changing business landscape that we have. So every new trend, every new technology, everything new that happens in your customer base and so on, you need to take that into account, right? And you need to develop this sort of vision to see where things are going and how you can take advantage of these new things, right? And sometimes things move so fast that if you stay too much into the way of things are done already, you can't really move forward, right? You get a little bit stuck in the system that you already know or that you already are used to or comfortable with, and that's not good. While creativity, of course, can help you, tackle these rapid changes in the business world. Obviously, it helps us drive innovation. If we think about all sorts of inventions, they all started because there was some crazy person that said, oh yeah, maybe I can create a bulb that, is going to give light forever and ever, at the time where there was only candles, right? We're talking about Edison, of course. So all these crazy innovations, they require a lot of creativity. So we better take care of that. Obviously, it helps us for lead generation ideas. Obviously, it helps us identify new opportunities. Sometimes I always say opportunities are everywhere. We just need to be able to see them and to seize them, right? And it's always easier said than done, of course, because then we're busy with our daily job and so on. But if we really actively train our creative skills, then we are better able to see these opportunities. And then last but not least, on the more practical side, being creative really helps us a big deal writing emails or social media posts and so on. So business development is a great field. I mean, I love it. I've been doing it for 15 years. So I think I proved to myself that I really love it. But there are some things that, that kind of hinder a little bit the creative process for business developers. I've experienced it myself, but I'm pretty sure all of you also felt that at some point. And sometimes there are some things in our job that can prevent that from happening and that can really block our creativity. Now, the first one is the pressure of getting results. Now, business development oftentimes, like some companies, of course, are very large, so they have a lot of business developers, and let's say the responsibility is a little bit more spread out, right? But when you work for a smaller company or you're the only business developer, what happens is that all the pressure for every results come on your shoulders. So this is a very big problem when it comes to creativity. The other one is repetitive tasks, right? So sometimes, if we have to send emails, because let's say we identified that's the strategy for our business, cold outreach, okay? Well, then it means that every day you open your Gmail and then you have to write your 10 to 20 emails to people, more or less the same profile. So more or less same, always the same things. And maybe you do cold calls and that's always the same thing. Or maybe you have to find email addresses. That's always the same thing, right? Now, repetitive tasks and processes, I love them because they make the process easy and you know what you get when you have a solid process. But of course, when things become very repetitive, they really let this creative side die a little bit. The other one is risk aversion. So as I said before, of course, when we have a lot of pressure for results, it becomes also more difficult to try different things, right? Because why would you do that? Why would you take the risk of spending 3 months on a new initiative and then things don't work out and you get fired? It happens, unfortunately, right? It happens because companies, even the most innovative ones and so on, at the end of the day, they're there for the bottom line, right? We're there to generate revenue, ideally to make profit, right? So we're going to do things that know that work, right? That's a mistake once again, because then it's probably a new idea or a new initiative could generate more results than what you're already doing. But the fact that you're risk adverse, it's just not going to make you do those things. So you're actually missing out on opportunities. Lack of time is another killer for creativity. Of course, if we don't have enough time to do the things we have to do, definitely we don't have the time to try new things, right? Why would we do that? Again, limited time, limited resources. So we need to do what we can, and ideally something that brings us results immediately. The other one is not having support from your manager. Imagine if you are always proposing new ideas to your boss and then they always tell you no. Yeah, well, then at some point you say, well, why do I care? That's not my company. I don't care. I'm not going to do this. Fine. I'm just going to do what you tell me to do, and that's it. But then again, it comes at the cost of your own creativity. And then the last thing, the last creativity killer is not having enough resources, especially if we work in small companies. It's, sometimes we don't have financial resources, human resources, or talent resources, right? So we maybe don't have a designer that can create the graphics for the webinar, right? So that can be a problem. And then again, if we don't have these resources, why care? Why should we be more creative? Why should we be doing all these other things? But there is one more problem when it comes to creativity, which is totally internal and that we can fix, that has everything to do with our own mindset. And that's really, at the end of the day, one of the biggest problems in creativity is just us not thinking that we can do that, that's a good idea, or maybe just having some biases, or blocks that really just prevent us from seeing these opportunities. If we actively use our bias to prevent ourselves from doing something new, then it's a problem. And that is a problem that we can fix only internally, right? So there's not someone that can tell us, that's something you have to fix of yourself. And that, of course, having these mental blocks and biases or preconceived concepts, ideas, obviously makes it more difficult for us to adapt to new trends. It clouds our judgment, and it also becomes a problem to build relationships, right? Imagine if you're always negative and you're like, no, I'm not going to try this, I'm not going to try that. People are going to think you're very close-minded. They are not going to integrate you in conversations when it comes to, coming up with new ideas and so on. You're going to be left out, and that's a never good place to be as a business developer or in general as a professional. So we don't want that. So one example, which is really rampant because it happens to many people when they come to our business development training. One thing we tell them to do, pretty much to everyone that works in a B2B business or anyone that is looking for a job, for example, is you need to ramp up your presence on social media, especially LinkedIn, right? So you need to be on there because there's so much opportunity in there. Now, the problem is, many people, they say, yeah, sure, I'm going to update my LinkedIn. I'm going to write my LinkedIn bio. I'm going to post. I'm going to interact. I'm going to do everything, right? What they tell me in the session. But then I go to check their profiles and nothing happens, right? So it's like, all right, what is that? Why is that? Now, what I realized is that the majority of the time, the problem is not even not seeing the opportunity of using it, because obviously, like, you see thousands of people posting every day, you like those posts, like you're there interacting with them, you find value in some of them, maybe you even met some cool people on LinkedIn, so you know that it works. But the problem is most people are scared of using it. They're scared of making a mistake. They're scared that, their colleagues are going to think, oh, this is a know-it-all, or, or maybe they want to change job, or, oh my God, oh, now I want to be an influencer. That happened to me too. When I started, I was still working in this recruitment software, and I started working on the BD school on the side. So I was, just testing a little bit. And the first thing I did was to be very active on LinkedIn. And one of my colleagues, let's not mention him, but behind my back, he went around saying, oh, yeah, now she's pretending to be an influencer, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't pretending to be anything. I was just sharing what I knew related to my field. And that was it, I didn't let that stop me, because in my mind, I always told myself, I don't care if what I write, if what I share is helpful, even just for one person. It's one more person that can find benefit from it. What's bad in that? There is really nothing bad in that. But the point is, on LinkedIn, there are 930 million users from across the world. Obviously, North America is the biggest one, but there are people using it everywhere. And this is just destined to grow. So that's not going anywhere, So more and more people are going to use it. Of all these 930 million, there is just a handful of people posting. Like, I think it's about 1 or 2 million that actually post. So you see that there is a huge difference there, right? So there is a huge opportunity for all of you here, whatever field you're in. If you start posting on LinkedIn, you're going to be among the very small percentage that is actually using it properly, right? And using it properly means using it for your own benefits, to generate leads, to build your thought leadership, to build your credibility, to find a job, to connect with recruiters, to build a network. So really, like, the opportunities are endless. And in recent surveys, you can see that, across all the channels for B2B companies, this was specific for B2B, almost 60% of people say that LinkedIn was the social media channel that generated the most leads for them. So really, one of our biggest blockers in creativity is ourselves. So I really encourage you to just, try to loosen up in that sense. Now, LinkedIn is just an example, because I know that is a problem for many people in the BD space. But for anything else, any new channel you want to try and so on, just go for it, and try to, always stimulate your creativity. Now, let's talk about some tactics to boost our creativity. I actually chose 3 major ones, and then I will give you some more tips towards the end of these slides, just for the sake of course, timing, right? Now, the first one is to use divergent thinking. Now, here you see 2 different images, right? So we have on one side, like, it's very nice structure. There are all the blocks, one on top of each other, with the ideas, that come, and that's perfect, right? Now, this is the opposite of divergent thinking. This is convergent thinking, right? On the other side, we see a little bit more of a mess, which is this one, like all the shapes, they're all scrambled around and so on. But then you see there are all these ideas coming up from different places. This is divergent thinking. Now, when we talk about divergent thinking, we're thinking about a thinking process. Okay, look at that, a lot of thinking today. We're talking about a type of thinking that basically really pushes us to go out of our comfort zone and just have no judgment whatsoever for whatever comes in our mind. And the goal of divergent thinking is to come up with as many ideas as possible, right? Now, again, we're focusing a lot of quantity, so we want to have as many ideas as possible. We want to focus on the most random ideas that we can think of, even things that sound really, really crazy. That's fine. We want to have a very flexible approach when we're doing divergent thinking. We want to focus on the originality of our ideas, and we don't judge these ideas until we decide on what we want to do, right? So it's really the best way to just try to get out the most creative ideas that we possibly can. On the opposite side, we have convergent thinking, which is, let's say, the most traditional way of thinking, right? So whenever we have to take a decision, what do? We look at all the options, we focus on our solution, we do a bit of a critical evaluation. We say, okay, this idea is good for this, but it's not very good for this other reason, right? Very focused on the practicality of this idea. So it needs to be an idea that we can implement immediately, right? Something easy that we can execute on. It's very logical and systematic. And the main goal of convergent thinking is to narrow down options until we find the one that is the most ideal for us. Now, I have a little exercise for you, which is the paperclip test. Now, we do a similar version in our training, but it's a little bit more elaborate because we come up really with crazy business ideas. But for the sake, again, of the 1 hour webinar, I decided to go for a simple version. So what I would like you all to do is to, I hope you all have a pen and paper. If not, you probably have a laptop because you're looking at the screen right now. So what I want you to do is in the next, let's say 1 minute, and I will time it. In the next 1 minute, I want you to write down all the possible ideas that you can come up with using a paper clip. So what other uses can you implement with the paper clip? So obviously the paper clip is to, you know, keep the, we say in Italian to not make the ears on the pages. I don't know, like it's the same, but of course it has a pretty straightforward use, right? Next one, mindfulness and observation. Now, mindfulness, of course, everybody's talking about it lately. It's a great meditation technique to relax, to reduce stress. So that's why it became also so popular in the business world, right? Many people are using mindfulness as a way really to relax, gain clarity of mind, and so on. Now, we want to combine it with observation. Why? Because mindfulness basically really helps us to stay present in the moment, to connect with our surrounding, to make us more aware of what's going on around us. Plus, it opens to new perspective and so on. But we should combine it with the observation, like really careful observation. Why? Because the observation makes us focus more on the details. So while we're on the present, then we can start focusing on the details. We can look for patterns. That is something, for example, that I always recommend. So when you're doing customer research, for example, so if you're talking about your customers, right? You need to look at patterns. You need to look at what these people have in common, right? Because otherwise it becomes impossible to do any sort of marketing activity, any sort of cold outreach, and so on. So you need to look for patterns and see what are the similarities among your customers, right? That comes if you become good at observing and just really paying attention to what's going on around you. Now, here I have a little example from Google on how, this mindfulness can be helpful. And why I wanted to make this example in specific is because sometimes, so although I tried practicing mindfulness and I've seen the benefits of it, I'm really not consistent with it. Like there is just like, I don't manage because the idea of just standing still, I'm more of a doer, so I like to initiate things, right? Then again, when I try to meditate and be mindful, then I feel more relaxed. I actually do more, but yeah, okay. Now, turns out that at Google, they had a little bit the same thoughts, right? Okay, so we're doing all this stuff and so on, like we're all stressed out and we need to come up with these creative ideas because we are Google and so on. So what do we do? Now, there is this guy called Chade Meng Tan. I had to write it down. So he was one of the first engineers at Google. And in 2007, he had this idea. He had this idea of calling experts in different fields. He called some neuroscientists, some psychologists, some experts in leadership, and so on. And he asked them to create a training program for employees at Google. The idea was really to help them be more creative, but to do so in a more sustainable way, right? And then there was this idea of combining different sectors, different, let's say, experts, really just to make it as relevant as possible. Now, the result of it was a training called Search Inside Yourself. And the Search Inside Yourself basically became, let's say, the standard for training at Google. Now, this training combines different elements, but is largely based on emotional intelligence. Probably you heard of it. Emotional intelligence was first was book and studies made by Daniel Goleman, and it was really like the entire emotional intelligence concept is that you are able to understand yourself first. So you're really self-aware on who you are, what you like, and what makes you tick, and so on. But then you're also able to understand how other people are feeling, what it is that motivates them, and so on, right? And because you're better able to understand yourself and the other, then you're better able to communicate and collaborate with the others, right? What happened is that this training became so popular that external companies started asking Google if they could take the same training. So what did this guy do? Because he was smart, he was an engineer at Google after all, he created a company on that. So now they have a training company, which is the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And if you want, you can go check it out. They provide training, so you can get the training and be certified. Like you can get the training. I think it's around 7 weeks program in which they really help you become more mindful and use these techniques for more creativity. Now, next tactic you can use is to adopt interdisciplinary learning. This, again, the main idea is that if you combine things in different fields, then you're better able to connect the dots. When you combine knowledge from different fields entirely, right? Besides, there is a huge benefit, and that as business developers, maybe is even more important, which is if you know things from many different fields and so on, you're never going to run out of things to talk about when you're with your customers, partners, and networking events and so on. Like I had the most random conversations at this type of events, mostly not about business development or business in general, but because you have all these different reference points and so on, you're able to build these connections to talk about everything. But most important, you're able to see opportunities where other people don't see them, right? And that's really the main thing. So when you converge different disciplines, you're able to be more innovative in your thinking, and you're able to come up with more creative ideas. Besides, it helps you think beyond silos. So really, like, you just don't think only, oh yeah, business development, especially if you do more sales than BD. I know it's the case for many people. You really think, okay, I need to generate more leads. I need to generate opportunities. I need to close deals, right? And then what do you do is like, okay, I'm just going to send more emails, right? Well, maybe you could attend an event, or maybe you could speak at an event, or maybe you could ask your customers to refer you to someone, and so on, right? So when you're able to, when you gain this knowledge from different fields, then a wide door opens up for you for opportunities. Obviously, it helps us come up with new solutions and enhances our problem solving as well. So just try to do the same. So as you work in different fields or learn things from different fields, try to apply them to yours and see what are the similarities that you can find. Now, all these things, so all this interdisciplinary learning, most of the biggest companies obviously adopt them, because otherwise they wouldn't be some of the biggest ones. And here, for example, we have IBM, Microsoft, Facebook. So what they do, they have a lot of interdisciplinary meetings and workshops in which basically they bring together people from many different industries and fields, and then they just let them brainstorm on things. They do it with hackathons, for example, all of them. So they organize these hackathons in which, again, they bring talents from different fields trying to find new solutions. IBM also has a partnership with the MIT, where basically they get together with the scientists, and they try to come up with new products, new solutions, and so on. So this is really, and I mean, you're probably very curious people as well, otherwise you wouldn't be here either, right? So probably you already experienced some of these things, right, in which you can draw parallels with different fields and so on. Now, as I said, I chose the top 3, let's say, things that you can really implement. But then I thought, yeah, let's make it a little bit extra. So I prepared this little decalogue of the creative BD. And these are really stuff that you can do literally any day, anytime. I do encourage you to do that. For example, practicing daily mindfulness. That's something I should be doing too, but do what I say, know what I do. So a daily mindfulness can really help you to just, clear up your mind and then have more space for creativity. The other thing you could do is to go on observation walks. What does that mean? So you just go around for your daily walk with your dog, maybe, and so on. And then you just pay really attention to what's around you. And what I like to do when I do this is actually just to come up with stories on, I don't know, if I see two people sitting, I start thinking of what they might be talking about or this kind of stuff, right? But the idea is just to train yourself to be very observant on the things around you. The other thing is to go to interdisciplinary events. So don't go only to events that really are related to your industry. Try to go maybe to a complementary industry, something maybe that you have some things in common, or maybe something that doesn't have absolutely anything in common, but you're really interested in. Because again, this is going to help you to just think and frame things, problems, and so on in different perspectives. And that's really invaluable. The fifth commandment, let's say, is the 5 whys technique. Now, the 5 whys technique is basically every time you have a problem or you're thinking about something, a new idea, and so on, ask yourself why at least 5 times. So, for example, I would like to, I don't know, I don't generate enough leads. Okay, why is that? I don't know. I think it's because we're not reaching out to enough people. I've not been very active on LinkedIn lately. I only contacted, I don't know, 5 people last month. And then you ask yourself why again. It's like, okay, why is that? It's like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't feeling very motivated and blah, blah, blah. Why is that? And then you repeat it at least 5 times, because this is going to help you really go granular into what's the real problem, which means then you're better able to find the right solution for that problem. Plus, sometimes you come up with really random things, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't think of that. You can repeat it even more than 5 times, but 5 is the baseline. Then write down your ideas. This is something like now I do it on my phone every time. So if I have a new idea, and oftentimes business ideas for me, especially content ideas, they come when I'm watching something else, when I'm reading a book and so on. Like just a few days ago, I was watching this, it was a video on YouTube, and it was about like some really weird companies. So I wrote down in the notes that when it's Halloween, we should write the post about them. I'm not going to spoil it because probably we're going to write it. But, I was just watching these random videos like, that makes for a great post for the BD school, right? So I just wrote it down. It's there. So I know that I won't lose it. However, if you don't write them down, you are going to lose them. So don't make the same mistake. Then the alternative use game. That's what we did before, right? With the paperclip, you can do it with anything. Reflecting on failures. I would say also reflecting on victories, to be honest, because whenever you reflect and you really look back at what happened, why things worked out, why things didn't work out, then you can reverse engineer whatever happened, right? And then you can think of different things that you could have done or that you could implement moving forward. But overall, it really helps you to understand and to really reverse engineer everything so that you can replicate what worked and you can absolutely not replicate what didn't work. The other thing is to start a learning challenge. Of course, there is a huge benefit in learning new skills. It really wires your brain in a different way as you learn different things, right? So your brain gets used to a different frame of working. It can be anything. It can be a new language. It can be playing an instrument. It can be any cooking. It can be absolutely anything. But the point is, you put yourself in a situation in which you have to basically change the way you think about things and basically rewire your brain. And the last one, which might be a fun one, maybe as a team meeting, you could do that. You can try the blindfolded brainstorming. So basically, you blindfold yourself and then you start brainstorming on different ideas. Now, what's the main benefit is that when you're blindfolded, you basically remove all the visual inputs that you have around you, right? Which maybe they can give you some biases or this kind of stuff, right? So you just remove everything, right? And then you just brainstorm so that you really, all that's left is basically your imagination, your creativity. Last thing is books. So here, actually, search inside yourself. The Chade Meng Tan, the engineer that created this, the initiator of this training, actually bought a book. besides, of course, starting a company. So you can check it out. The other one is called Still Like an Artist. I didn't read this book yet, but I did read very good reviews. So I just made it on my list of book readings. So soon that's going to be there. And the last one is tools. Now, obviously, ChatGPT is one of the tools you can use when you're a little bit not creative. I use it pretty much for everything. We use it for everything. Like now, even the posts on social media and so on, we always get like some inspiration from it. Obviously, you have to rewrite because sometimes it's a little bit too creative, let's say. So make sure that you do double check that. But ChatGPT can really be a way to, get unstuck when you're stuck, let's say. So don't use it, like don't overuse it. But for example, yesterday I was sending emails to some prospects, and there was this one guy, he wasn't posting anything, so I had no idea what to write to this guy because we hyper-personalize everything. So I went on ChatGPT and I asked it, hey, I want to send a cold email to this guy. I send a link to his profile. And I found this article which seems interesting. So please write a cold email referencing this article. Of course, you have to rewrite it a little bit, but it's a good starting point, right? So that you don't get stuck. So that is definitely one that you can use. ChatGPT, consider it. You can use it for pretty much everything, like writing value propositions, getting lists of companies. You can simply ask ChatGPT to give you the list of the top 100 companies in the tech sector in Canada, right? So you can do pretty much everything. So whenever you're stuck, go there. You can even ask ideas to be more creative. Jasper and Copy.ai, they're very similar, so very content focused, but there again, so you can write content ideas and so on. Trend Hunter, it's a website basically where you can find all the trends up and coming and so on, and also a lot of business ideas that you can copy or just see how they did things and so on. So it can be a good place again for when you're stuck. And Idea Buddy is basically a software to organize your ideas once you have some. So maybe the least relevant at this stage. So probably we can focus on the other ones that give us a little bit of ideas and creative thinking. Idea Buddy is more for the planning side. All right, before we go to the Q&A, next step. So we organize, besides the monthly webinars, every last Thursday of the month, we talk about a different business development topic. We also organize meetups every month on I think is the third Wednesday of the month. Yes, we organize the BD meetup. It's a very informal meetup. Milan and Christian actually were there in the last one, so maybe they can tell you something more, but very chill. So everybody can come up and we basically share our challenges, what we learned, what we were struggling with in the month, and then everybody else gives their 2 cents. So it's a really good way to just meet other business developers, feel less lonely, and just get fresh perspectives pretty much on whatever challenge you're facing. If you want, you can join. As I mentioned before, you sign up, you share your challenge, and then you get tips. I forgot that I put this slide here. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what I did. And if you want to join, the next one is going to be on September 20th at 2 p.m. Amsterdam time zone.